With my mother's full backing, my ex-fiancée left me to marry him after learning of her affair with my brother while she was pregnant, and now they want me to take over. 5 years ago, a month before my fiancée, who is now 30 years old, was about to tie the knot, I discovered that she had been having an affair with my brother. She was pregnant and wanted to keep the kid, which was the only reason they were even telling me about it. My brother Chris is 33, and my ex-fiancée Karen is 30. Had reportedly been sharing a bed since Karen and I were engaged. Given that Karen and I had been dating since our junior year of high school and continued to remain together throughout college, getting engaged was undoubtedly the next logical step in our relationship. Instead, she chose to cheat on me with my brother after we became engaged. That only occurred because, only a few days after our engagement, my brother told her that he had always had love for her, and that he felt compelled to tell her because she was getting married. He was unable to discuss these matters with her after that. Then she abruptly realized that she had been slowly developing affections for him as well. She had stayed with me because she wasn't sure about him, even though it seemed like they would periodically flirt behind my back at family gatherings and the like. 5 years ago, a few months before my wedding, I learned all of these things when my parents and the two of them sat me down and informed me that she could no longer be with them, and that they were preparing to be together. Karen was in love with Chris and they were expecting a child together, so she decided to marry me. That day, I had been so outraged over it that I had nearly denied it. I informed Karen that whatever this connection was with Chris, I wanted her to come home with me. However, my mother was very emphatic that Chris and Karen would be together and that nothing of the sort would occur. Since it was ultimately their choice, I just had to accept it. The fact that my mother was in favor of anything like this was so unbelievable to me. My dad at least had the grace to attempt to console me while seeming embarrassed. However, my mother was openly endorsing this and even informed me that since Karen was pregnant, I could keep my concerns to myself. Given how fragile she was, I had no right to disturb her. My mother fought with me to defend what was happening because she was so excited about finally having a grandchild in the family that she could not care less about what I was going through. Karen moved in with my family following the altercation that day since her own parents no longer wanted to talk to her after she had come clean. Naturally, we had to call off the wedding, and because my parents paid for it, I also didn't have to worry about that. But because I wouldn't talk to them, I was banished from the family, and we haven't had any communication at all for the last 5 years. My father was the only one who had made the effort to get in touch with me, but I had no desire to talk to him. Since I severed my relationship with them, they have been completely silent. Karen and I had been together for a very long period, therefore it took me a very long time to move on from what had happened to me. It took me a lot of therapy to go over the fact that I had actually loved her, and I still struggle with it now, though I wouldn't say I'm completely over it. However, I did learn that she had a son with my brother via the other members of the family who had stayed in contact with me. There was also no need to get in touch with me when she gave birth to her kid because a paternity test only a month later revealed that the child was my brother's and not mine. Then they were married, and they've been together for 5 years now. Since my mother had been the one who had been most supportive of Karen and Chris, almost to an unhealthy degree, I had believed that everything was going well for them until she contacted me unexpectedly about a week ago. She wrote me an email, stating that she needed to talk to me immediately, so I decided to give her a call back out of curiosity. She broke the dreadful news to me over the phone while weeping, telling me that my brother had recently been in a serious accident. He had unhappily fallen into a coma as a result of the accident in this hit-and-run case, and it was impossible to predict how long it would take him to recover. 3 days after this incident, which occurred last week, the physicians declared that the situation was now rather serious. My mom had made the decision to give me a call to let me know about it. I had assumed that she would want me to come see him and be there for the family, which I would have been willing to do since, despite everything, I believe this to be a big issue and it would still have been a fair requirement of me. I don't want to ignore someone who is in such a bad situation. However, my mother took completely another turn and stated that she wanted me to be present for Karen and my nephew. She then informed me that she now expected me to take over and support them in my brother's place, even though I had no idea what that entailed. When I asked her to explain, she said that I had to support Karen and her child in any way possible because Chris was essentially no longer there. In addition to expecting me to help them out financially, she also expected me to move in with them so that I could be there for them. I would have taken them in myself, she claimed. But caring for all of them would be too much labor, and she was not getting any younger. She called me to inform me of this, and she anticipated that I would decide during the conversation. She didn't talk to me for 5 years, so it's clear that I lost my patience. And now that she was speaking to me at last, she was expecting me to accomplish something really significant. I could see that Karen and her kid needed someone to support them because they were alone at the moment, but that someone ought to have been a member of their close family. I wasn't the one she deceived and didn't even try to apologize to. Naturally, I informed my mother right away that I would never do it, and that she was stupid for ever supposing I would agree to it. I had little time to spend when she began fighting with me over the phone. I didn't want to talk to her anymore since I was already feeling very angry. I simply ended the call and blocked her again. After that, I made an effort to carry on with my day as usual. However, I felt terrible for Chris and Karen and couldn't stop thinking about what they were going through. However, I was clearly not going to follow my mother's instructions and replace my brother in their family since it was just strange. Despite the fact that he was still alive, she was behaving as though he had already died. I felt my father would be more rational than my mother, so later that day I called him instead since I was feeling really uneasy about the whole thing. After not speaking to him for 5 years, it was really awkward. I asked him how Chris was doing when we struck up a conversation, and he informed me that things were not going well at the moment. I anticipated him to have some fair insight after I informed him about my talk with my mother earlier that day. However, he said that my mother was correct to anticipate such from me. My dad was typically the more sensible of my two parents, so that really caught me off guard. Even he was talking strange things now. I questioned him whether he truly meant that, and he said that he did, adding that I'm also related to Karen and that we have a history together nonetheless. In the end, I'm blood, regardless of how our connection has developed over the last 5 years, so if they can't rely on anybody to defend the family, it should be me. My mother's expectations weren't entirely out of the question, he remarked. I was genuinely caught off guard by that. To be honest, I have no idea what to do at the moment. I haven't spoken to any of my family members, including my other relatives, for the previous week, because I'm simply worried that someone would bring this up to me and I'll have to defend my choices. In addition, I feel like the bad guy because I'm not standing up for my family, even though I know they need me emotionally, if not financially. To be honest, I don't know what to do. Additionally, I feel awful for flatly refusing my mother's request even though I realize it's strange and unrealistic. I feel so strange about this whole thing that I haven't even gone to the hospital to see my brother. Because this is also personal, I have also been unable to discuss it with any of my friends. They are aware of the strained relationship that has existed between my family and myself ever since my wedding was put off. But this is really a little more bizarre than that. I'm writing this on Reddit right now because I truly believe I need some unbiased advice on what I should do. Everyone, even my family and friends, will have a prejudiced perspective of some kind. If I don't find a workable answer to all of this soon, I'm going to go crazy, therefore I truly need guidance. I genuinely feel as like I'm returning to that very dark time in my life when I was preoccupied with thoughts of Karen and Chris immediately following my discovery that she had been unfaithful to me. And since it has taken me a long time to get over it, I don't want to return there. In order for me to at least divert my attention, please share everything anyone has to say, regardless of how severe their viewpoint may be. AITA, for declining to see my family and provide support following my brother's injury. First update. Hello everyone, I have made the decision to postpone seeing my family for the time being. Right now, it's just too much for me. Because of what my parents were telling me, I was unaware of how severe my anxiety had been over the last week. However, I'm currently taking my anxiety medications again and attempting to manage things. In the comments area of my initial article, I received a lot of love and support from individuals, and even sent me a direct message to let me know they were there for me and that I'm not alone, for which I am really thankful. I really appreciate that. I just don't believe I can handle all of this on my own, so I've also talked to a few of my close friends and told them what's happening. In order to get everything off my chest, they have also assured me that I can talk to them at any time. They have also assured me that I made the proper choice in not going to meet them at this time, because it's the greatest choice I can make for myself right now. Regardless of what other people are going through in life, I have to prioritize myself. Chris and my family have always prioritized themselves so far, so I need to follow suit. In all honesty, I don't feel like I have to provide them with emotional support either. They can handle this on their own since they have each other. After the wedding was called off and I discovered that I had been cheated on, I was the one who got no support at all from my immediate family. Even though my brother was the one who had acted improperly and ought to have been the one to leave the family, my own parents had turned against me and chosen him over me. However, I'm attempting to put things behind me and move on. If I return to them, I won't be able to accomplish it. As a result, I have blocked them all once more and will continue to maintain my resolve to avoid communication with them. I sincerely apologize for my brother's ordeal and wish him a speedy recovery, regardless of what he may have done. I can't be someone who desires for awful things to happen to other people. I'm leaving, but I hope everything works out for them. I will now only concentrate on my own mental well-being. And because of how I handled this, and how angry I became over my parents' remarks, I'm thinking about returning to therapy. Since I don't think I'm handling all of this as well as I thought I was, and all of those old sentiments are resurfacing, I truly believe I need to go to a professional. I'm going to take care of myself now. I have been informed by a few family members that my brother's condition is still rather serious and is not getting better. He had remained in the hospital for about 2 weeks. The family is in a terrible situation, and I'm sad for them. But there isn't much I can do. At least once in the last 2 weeks, everyone who knows my family has visited my brother in the hospital and expressed their sympathies for the horrific catastrophe that occurred, aside from me. That's what I would have done. However, I also learned from my relatives that my parents have been disparaging me to anybody who has visited them and have painted me as the villain. They are reportedly telling everyone that I was invited to visit them and be there for the family. But I declined, and they accused me of saying things like my brother deserved this, and this was karma for screwing me over 5 years ago. Just so you know, I didn't say anything like that, since that didn't seem like anything I would say. A few of them got in touch with me to ask whether this was real. Because I tend to be a kind person to everyone, I clearly informed them that I didn't say these things, and that my parents were fabricating it to make me seem like a bad person when they questioned me about it. Given my parents' personalities, it's likely to elicit a response from me or something similar. Considering that they had already ruined my life once, I was just really unhappy that they were making up tales and saying such things about me in order to paint me as a villain. I consider myself fortunate that my family questioned me about it, since I doubt that anybody in the family would have been talking to me at this point if they had simply decided to trust my parents. Point either way. Although I hadn't spoken to my parents in 5 years, my aunts, uncles, cousins, and the rest of my family had supported me. I believe my parents couldn't take it any longer and tried to ruin that for me too, since I truly didn't want to lose it. Why they despise me so much is beyond me. Literally, I have never harmed them. My brother and I never really got along, and my parents have always harbored affection for him since we were young. However, this seems over the top and unneeded. Update 3. Hello. So 2 days after I wrote an update, my mother decided to get in touch with me once again today. She was forced to visit me in order to speak with me because I had blocked them elsewhere. She had already been waiting for me when I got home from work. Since I was already so worn out from work, I honestly didn't feel like talking to her at all. She saw me and I had to go talk to her, even though I was on the verge of getting back in the car. I chose to speak with her in the front yard because I didn't want to let her into my house because it would be difficult to get rid of her later. However, this ended up being highly detrimental to me. She simply began shouting at me, which also caught the neighbor's attention. The start of the chat was rather standard. I had to respond to her courteously when she engaged in some small conversation. However, I was unable to resist. In the end, I asked her why she had been fabricating stories about me in order to paint me as a villain. I informed her that it was unfair to me since, despite the way my family had treated me, I had never hoped for anything negative to happen to them. Sincerely, all I wanted to do was go on with my life, but they were making it extremely difficult for me to do so. I had been suppressing these emotions for a very long time, but they suddenly surfaced when I met her, and I was unable to stop myself. I just told her that I was really disappointed in their conduct and that it was really hard for me to consider them family after all that had transpired because they had never treated me that way. I had just returned home from work, so whatever it was she had come to discuss with me could wait. Furthermore, I wasn't in the mood to argue or discuss anything that would emotionally drain me. Up until then, she had listened to me quietly. However, she became extremely upset and said that she was just here to apologize for the same things I had said when I informed her that I did not want to talk to her at that time. She said that neither she nor my father had been acting rationally. At first, they had been rather upset with my attitude as I had declined to defend my family and even pay my brother a visit when he was in the hospital. However, they later acknowledged that I was still clearly extremely angry with them for not treating me well during the previous 5 years, and for that reason I wasn't going. She believed that the family should remain together for the purpose of emotional stability at this time, so she had come here to talk to me and attempt to work things out between us. However, I did not want to talk to her after I informed her of this. She chose to shout at me instead after having second thoughts. She said that considering my reaction when I learned of my brother's injury, I should probably simply be thankful that I still have family. She was on the verge of cutting me off and ensuring that the other members of my family ceased communicating with me altogether. She said that, evidently, she thought my response to hearing of my brother's injury had not been sorrowful enough, but I didn't understand what she was talking about. I had no idea what she had asked me to do, and she claimed that she had assumed that I would at least display some emotion when she informed me of my brother's accident. However, during the phone chat, I came across as really uninterested. Naturally, news like that was going to have an impact on me, regardless of our personal relationships, and it has. As I already stated, regardless of our interpersonal ties, I do not wish it upon anyone, even my family. Thus, when I learned of his accident, I was undoubtedly distressed. She might not have been able to see my face throughout the phone call, but her justifications were utterly nonsensical and without any basis. She continued by saying that my failure to support Karen and my nephew and to stand in for them when my brother was away demonstrated my lack of concern for the family. I genuinely believed that my parents had begun to lose their minds, since these things are so strange and needless, and she was simply making things up again to explain how they were acting. In any case, I became even less interested in talking to her once she began ranting at me, and I just made the decision to ask her to leave by going inside my home. She continued to shout at me, so after a while I opened the door to my house and entered. I was so angry that I slammed the door in her face and told her to get out when she attempted to follow me inside. I no longer wanted to communicate with her. After arguing with me, she eventually left after I threatened to contact the police. She did, however, cuss me out first and warn me that I would soon have to deal with the fallout from this. I'm not even interested in learning what that implies, and I have no idea what it means. All I want to do is unwind and go about my life. Update 4. Hi there. 26 days have passed since the accident. Today, my family was finally able to share some positive news with everyone. Naturally, I learned about it from my relatives rather than directly from them. The good news, though, is that my brother is at last starting to get well. It's encouraging that he is reacting well and is no longer in a coma. Despite the fact that I was expelled from the family a long time ago, the past month has been extremely stressful for everyone, including myself. I sincerely hope he can make it and that he just gets better from now on. However, my parents' behavior toward me over the last 26 days has clearly demonstrated to me that they are insane, and I believe they were simply venting their annoyance on me. I didn't hear from my mother for a few days following our last conversation, which I discussed in my previous report. However, my father then summoned me to chastise me instead. When I answered the phone, I couldn't tell it was him since he had used a different number than his normal one. As soon as I recognized him, he began to shout at me, so that I wouldn't even have time to hang up. He was also rather astute about it. In order to get a chance to yell at me, he attempted to surprise me. He made the decision to phone me at 5 in the morning rather than at any other time of day, because he was aware that I would be asleep and that my mind would be cloudy when I had to wake up to answer his call. My dad contacted me at 5 in the morning a few days after I had spoken with my mother. I eventually picked up the 4th phone call after nearly 3, and Dad started screaming at me right away, saying that I was an ungrateful child and that he wished I had never been born. I was a horrible person for not even bothering to see my brother in the hospital when he was in so much pain, he added, and he would make sure the rest of the family never spoke to me again. Supporting the family. I was still trying to take in all that was happening, so he hung up after yelling for about 5 minutes. He hung up the phone and blocked me by the time I finished that. It was not really humorous at the time it occurred. Now though, I think it's kind of amusing since my parents are ready to go to such lengths to paint me as the villain and give me a hard time for no apparent reason. As I've already stated, I think they're venting their annoyance on me because they need someone to blame, and I had to be that person for the family as usual. However, it's okay since my father was unable to turn the rest of the family against me because they understand what occurred 5 years ago and that I'm not wrong. Anyway, I just hope they stop bothering me and simply concentrate on my brother now that his condition is getting better. Version 5. Hi, it's strange to return here after nearly 3 years. A lot has transpired since then, mostly been for the better. Due to job, I currently reside in Germany. It's been a year and a half since I moved here, and I've also begun dating. For the past 8 months, my girlfriend and I have been together, and it has truly been lovely. I haven't spoken to my family at all for the last 3 years, and if I'm being completely honest, it has also been lovely. That's different since I've stayed in touch with my family members that were kind to me. Now my brother is all well. Although it took him a while to return to normal, he is doing well now after surviving the accident. After my brother began to recover, Karen came up to me to chat and express her regret for all that had previously occurred. I just informed her that she didn't even need to apologize at this time. After everyone had learned that I was relocating to Germany for business, she came up to me and apologized on my brother's and her own behalf, bringing me a flower. My brother was too embarrassed by what had transpired 8 years ago to see me, but in all honesty, it didn't matter anymore. I just informed him that I was forgiving of him. I didn't give a damn, and it was true. I was on to greater things and going on with my life, so I didn't really care. I have been here ever since, and I am quite glad that my parents no longer communicate with me, because I would never allow that to happen again. At last, I'm content now. Anyway, I'd best get back to my life now that everyone is caught up. I am incredibly grateful to everyone who showed me love and care when I was blogging here. They also kept checking in with me in the comments and other places long after I stopped posting.